welcome back to the Entertainment Vortex. We were at Brennan Theaters today watching Venom. As you can see, I was excited about this movie, but at the same time, I was very, very worried about this movie. Everything that came out over the last year about it seemed like it was a rocky production, seemed like it was going to be interesting, possibly a miss. Then you have the actual movie coming out in screenings, and you've got Tom Hardy saying that they cut 40 minutes out of the movie. You've got all this stuff in the news that's just making me super worried that this is going to be a bad movie. Well, I am here to tell you, by no means is this a perfect movie, but I do not believe it's a bad movie either. I think this movie was entertaining. I think they tried to do a couple things that I don't necessarily agree with. Some of their humor was a little much. The first quarter of the movie was kind of slow and a little clunky. But once Eddie Brock becomes Venom, or once Eddie Brock gets Venom, everything takes off. The action is good. The acting is good. The nuances of Eddie Brock's character were interesting. I found myself locked in.
So ever since seeing the first trailer for Venom, I've kind of been a little apprehensive. I love Marvel. Marvel is one of my favorite properties. They have so many different cool things, and Spider-Man is definitely one of them. And his rogues gallery of villains and anti-heroes are a full roster. There's a lot of stuff to take from there, a lot of lore you can choose from. Venom is an incredibly popular character, and I've seen what happens when Venom goes wrong. I didn't want that to happen for this film. So in some ways, my apprehension was somewhat correct, but I was also pleasantly surprised in a lot of places as well. I enjoy Tom Hardy, and I enjoy his acting performances in the majority of the things he's in. I've watched him in a movie where he's in a car by himself talking to people on the phone. That's how much I like this guy. In the very early parts of this film, his acting performance is a little strange and hard to grasp, but as the movie goes along, he kind of picks up steam, and he plays off of the other characters a little bit better, and it makes his little tics and weird idiosyncrasies that much more vibrant, and they make a lot more sense as the story goes along.
I would say about a quarter of the movie is what's really rough. Once you get there, strap yourself in, because just the action scenes alone are worth going to see this. The CG is absolutely amazing, the visual effects they did for this movie. The way they did Venom works fantastically. It looks like the comic book came to life. It is big, it's imposing, it is brutal, and you get the sense with the voice they used for Venom that this really is a symbiotic relationship like it should be. So while they didn't follow exactly to the comic books, they did have some little pieces here or there for comic book fans to pick up on, little Easter eggs, but they didn't take it to exactly. I mean, you know, this isn't exactly an MCU movie at this point. But I have to say, I really enjoyed it. Would I have liked to have seen it as a rated R movie? Absolutely. Would I have liked to have seen them leave in some of those 40 minutes they cut out? Absolutely. Does that mean that I didn't enjoy the movie? No. I enjoyed the movie quite a bit.
The script for this film is a little clunky at times, a little awkwardly paced at times, and the film suffers somewhat from it, but I wouldn't say that it's something where it completely removed me from the film and completely removed me from immersion. It definitely has some moments that are closer to maybe like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies rather than like your typical like MCU fare. The types of humor that are used and the types of scenes and sequences are closer to that Sam Raimi style, a little more schlocky, a little closer to that like B-movie type territory, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It definitely has its own presence and its own style, which I definitely enjoyed in some places.
So let's talk about Tom Hardy's performance, because that's what everybody's curious about. You see the trailer and you're like, that's kind of odd. What are they going for? So don't get me wrong, his performance was a little bit hard to take at the beginning. It's a little bit off, it's a little bit awkward, but the second that Venom is in the picture, and in Eddie, you get the idea that it's more conflicted than anything else, and I think it works really well. I think it just doesn't work without that second voice there. If the second voice isn't there, he's just weird. So once the second voice was there, and you've got Venom talking to him inside his mind, and everything's going crazy, and all the action's blowing up everywhere, the movie finds itself and really starts to shine.
There are going to be a couple sequences in this, even though it was rated PG-13, There isn't any gore necessarily, but there are definitely some scenes that are not for emetophobes. So if you get queasy at all with movies, there are definitely some points where you might run into problems with this. So keep an eye out for those. Like I said, just be prepared if you're one of those types of people.
We're going to have to talk about the weak point of this movie, and I think the weakest point of this movie was the villain. This suffers from bad Marvel villainitis. You've got a villain that's pretty much on the level of the original Ant-Man movie and the original Iron Man movie. One-dimensional and extremely mustache-twirling. This is generic with a capital G. Now, with that being said, you still get some good action out of it, you still get some cool fighting out of it, and you do want to see them duke it out at the end, but they really could have put some more effort into developing that villain. I think that Marvel has that problem of, this was even an association with Marvel. This isn't necessarily a Marvel movie, but it falls into that same category where they spent all their time on the hero in this case, and they didn't spend enough time really fleshing out the villain, and that's unfortunate, because I think if they would have had a better balance, the movie would have jumped up a couple notches for me.
Nick stated it in his review. I'm going to state it in mine. This is a very, very poorly written, cliched villain. I don't necessarily appreciate that. It takes the typical fare of evil for the sake of evil, template matching, and like I said, it just makes it kind of feel weird and wooden a little bit. The actor that played the character, I'm not sure of the name, wasn't necessarily bad, but I don't think he was given a lot to work with. Like I said, it's just that typical early stages of Marvel fare where you get just these characters that are very flat, one-dimensional, and don't have a whole lot of depth to them.
The other part of the movie that I felt was kind of awkward was Michelle Williams. I didn't really feel the chemistry there. I didn't really feel that she was a good choice. I felt that she was a strong character in the fact that she could handle some of the stuff that was being thrown at her, but I just felt that she was a little bit of a one-dimensional character, where she was there because, you always have to have a love interest, right? But that was about the extent of it. She didn't really serve a huge purpose in the scheme of things, so I didn't really know if she was the best choice. It could be on the writing side, it could be on the acting side, but overall, her as a character and her as a package was not satisfying to me at all. So I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. I definitely enjoyed the movie. It was fun. I'm glad I saw it on the big screen. I'm probably going to see it again because I want to catch more nuances, but it definitely wasn't as strong as it could have been. I feel that putting an R rating on this would have really benefited. They could have let them push the boundaries. You can see in the movie that there were scenes that really easily could have been rated R, but I think they kind of pulled it back. I almost wonder if the movie was rated R, and they made the call to just cut enough to make it rated PG-13. I'm not sure what the point was on that, maybe so that they could enter the MCU later and it'll still be family friendly. But yeah, do keep in mind there are 2 scenes after the credits. I highly suggest you sticking around for them. One of them is a pretty cool little nod, and the second one is actually a preview of something that you're not going to be expecting, but was amazing.
So I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10. It barely gets a passing grade for me, but I am interested to see what they're able to do in the future now that they've kind of gotten rid of some of the necessity to go through and add, an actual backstory or anything like that. Now that that's dug in a little bit deeper, if we do get that Venom and Carnage movie that they're talking about, I would be really excited for that.
If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We give you multiple videos every single week. And we have t-shirts available if you're interested in those as well. Those are available down in the description below. We hope you'll follow us into the Vortex. We'll see you next time.